As a world record athlete, empowering women in sports.
If I could ride one wave successfully that day, that was going to be a world record.
You have to have a lot of bravery and courage and resilience to say, I almost died, but I will go back.
If you're a very brave and courageous woman, usually they call you crazy or bossy or unprepared if you fail. Well, when it happened to the men's side, it was, oh my God, hero, medals, congratulations, bravery, risk taker.
It's not just about the courage, but it's all about your determination.
My dad being the driving force of sustainability 30 years ago when nobody really knew about climate change, he was already thinking about all of the problems that we would face in the future.
Maya,
I don't do many podcasts.
I feel even more honored now. Hi everyone, welcome to Influencer Marketing Uncover podcast. I'm Mara Genovese. I'm the founder and president of MG Empower, a global integrated market agency. Joining us today all the way from Brazil, actually Portugal, is a true pleasure and honor to welcome Maya Gabeira. Oh my God, 2 times world records champion by UNESCO and a board member of Ocean, an organization dedicated to protecting and restoring the world's oceans on a global scale. As described by The Guardian, in an intimate and macho world of a big wave surfing, Maya is breaking male and female records and challenging the sport's testosterone-fuelled identity. Oh my God. So Maya, what a true pleasure to have you with us today here at our MG studio. From your story as a world record athlete, your resilience, which I'm passionate, obsessed about it, your presence across social media and empowering women in sports, all the way to your passion for pro bono work. So Maya, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. So honored. Thanks for having me.
So happy. Oh my God, guys, I have Maya Gabeira at the podcast. Can you believe in that? Maya,
I don't do many podcasts.
I feel even more honored now. That's Maya. I've known you for a long time of reading and following you, but I think since we started the conversation more in depth about how we can potentially work together, and maybe it's about to come represent Maya internationally. Of course, I went deep down into your story and get to know you even, more closer. And yesterday, Maya was here in our office and we had the chance to have an amazing conversation where, I could get to know you and your story, and even in a more in-depth level. But it would be good for us to kick off this conversation. Maybe just give the audience like an overview about who is Maya Gabeira on your point of view.
My point of view, Maya is a dreamer. I started surfing when I was 14. I left Brazil very early. I was 15. At the age of 17, I was in Hawaii, following my passion, surfing, as a waitress, trying to balance and pay my bills and trying to find a way to maybe surf all the time rather than surf and waiters. And that's when, the passion for big wave surfing specifically became very strong when I moved to Hawaii at the age of 17. And I saw a opportunity in that field because it had no woman professional. And also I was very young for that particular niche in surfing. And I had quite a courageous personality that probably came from my dad and then just from taking a lot of early strong decisions in my life and being very committed to things and being very focused on what I wanted. And so many years later, I'm 36 now. I lived in Hawaii and California for around 11 years for my career. And then Nazare came into place. I moved to Nazare. And that's where I achieved the 2 world records, the only 2 world records, and for a woman in my sport, big wave surfing, and that's where I live now.
Maya, yes, it's just so amazing. And I love what you said about being courage at early age. And because it's not just about the courage, but it's all about your determination, right? So it's a combination of like to be courage to actually live. I've left Brazil 20 years ago. So I come to a place like I understand the courage that it needs to actually, leave your own country and go, conquer your dreams. But that takes a lot of determination as well, and focus, and and resilience. And when you reflected back, because you said that you left Brazil when you were 17,
15.
15, when you reflected back to now, what's the feeling?
It was a very naive decision.
That worked.
And even the choice of, being a big wave surfer was a very naive decision. When you're young, thank God, you think anything is possible.
And I think anything is possible.
And definitely growing up with my dad, was a very liberal politician, a journalist. He always kind of led by example of, the anything is possible kind of team. And we never really had long discussions about feminism or anything because, he was so far ahead of that. He was talking about, environmental issues, 30 years ago.
Wow.
And,
okay.
Founding the Green Party and talking about, legalizing prostitution and making it a work environment with rules and all of those things. And, so being a woman was a very natural thing in my household. Me and Dad, we never really discussed about, the difference or the difficulties I would maybe face for being a woman. So I think it was, I never really understood the barriers I was going to face until I faced them. And maybe that was a great thing because I didn't have any fear to choose such a male-dominated environment, sport, and industry. And then, of course, life goes on and you see and you take a lot of things on your head and you're like, ooh, I'm probably glad I didn't know that this is society. And because it wasn't like that in my house. But I when I left, I didn't have much of a plan but to surf, and I was very, very passionate about English. I grew up speaking German as my first language.
Okay, wow.
German and Portuguese. And when I turned 11, I didn't want to speak German anymore. And then when I was around 12, 13, I became very obsessed on leaving Brazil and seeing the world. And I wanted to be really good at English. So that was like the 2 things that drove me out of the country. It was English and surfing.
And I love that you said because, as a woman myself as well. So when I left Brazil, I was very young too, not as young as you were, but I didn't know as well the challenge I would face, trying to achieve my dreams, especially coming from Brazil is a different language and being foreign. And let's talk about being a woman, right? Because there's a lot of, sadly, the society still think that we cannot achieve more than a man, right? That man is in a position of, they're the ones on the position that can achieve to the top, and us, we always gonna have to be below them. How do you, once you start understanding all these barriers, being a woman, especially as you said on a sport that if you think about surf, immediately you think surf it's a man sport, but then you came and you changed the whole perspective of it and the whole perception of it, especially being, you just had the 2 records above male and female, right? So
one of them was the biggest wave of the year,
which is this is huge, right? It's just it's a testimony that yes, women, we can also do it. So how do you, if you come to your experience and how you face all this challenge, what would be your advice, for other women out there that, because it's not just you, it's not just me. Still, sadly, this is the society, this is the world
Yeah.
we're living in. So what would be your advice? I know you're still going through it, because
Yeah.
I don't know, at least for me, there's never an end.
No, it's
There's
never
never an end. So even if you're in a position right now and you're in your position right now, it's still, there's
Yeah.
this, every now and then I'm facing the same
Yeah, of
challenge. I go
course.
like, wow,
Still.
still happening. Like I thought I have proved myself enough, but no, it still is always a different challenge. So what would be your advice, for women out there, and based on your experience, how to deal with that?
Yeah, well, look, I don't have the exact answer for that, but that reminded me of a question after my documentary went on in Toronto International Film Festival. We went to the stage and there were questions from the audience, and one of them mentioned, why do so many men come up and say that you were incapable, you didn't have talent, you shouldn't have been there?
It's just awful.
And I said, what do you think about that? And I said, well, maybe they don't take into account brains, because
I love it.
Because talent is one part of it, and then there's a lot you can do if you think about your disadvantages and your advantages as a woman. And I was always very savvy and smart into understanding my challenges as a woman as far as physical capacities and disadvantages with testosterone levels and aggressivity and stuff. And then I also understood the huge advantages I had as a woman, that men don't have, instincts and patience and emotional intelligence and things that I could just put together and really move forward with the whole piece. So it's a very shallow overview of them to just see my physical and my gender and my size.
And determines if you will be successful or not.
Exactly, because it takes a lot more than that to be successful.
Oh my Lord,
and
yes.
Resilience and knowing where you want to go and having a clear goal and sticking to it. So it was to me, it was from the beginning, it was always a huge opportunity to be the only one. I was the only one for many years in the professional side of it. And I always thought it was a huge opportunity. It was only when more women, and especially from Hawaii and the United States, joined in that they started really trying to push me out, because this Brazilian had took so much space in this American industry. Back then, it was very, very American and Australian surfing. And when they could replace me, they tried their best. And I was never satisfied with the limits imposed by them. I was never, I didn't really see that as truth. So I was always pushing, and there were points where men felt very uncomfortable. And that's where, a lot of the criticism came from, is when they see you
with your confidence.
Yeah, doing something courageous and brave. And I think, those attributes that are often very attached to my sport, which is big wave surfing, which is courage, bravery, are not valued for women. They're very valued for men. But if you're a very brave and courageous woman, usually they call you crazy or bossy or unprepared if you fail. It's not that you risked a lot. They can risk a lot and fail all day long. We cannot. We don't have that opportunity. Failure was something that I was not allowed to do. How can I improve without failure? Exactly. If you don't give me room to fail,
how I'm gonna prove it otherwise?
I cannot succeed. So I had to overcome a lot of criticism over my failures and understand with time that I was allowed to fail. I was allowed to be brave, risk, and make things wrong and have accidents and risk my life like they do. And some of them lose their lives. And for me, it was always, she shouldn't have been there. She's so unprepared. You know, she's putting all other ones at risk. While when it happened to the men's side, it was, oh my God, hero, medals, congratulations, bravery, risk taker, you know. And so, I mean, at some point it became very clear that it was a bias, a criticism.
It is crazy. And then and it's so funny, like, because you said like, oh, she's not capable in the failure. And I love that you said that, because I faced quite a lot of that as well when I moved to London. Like, how do you think you're gonna succeed that? You're a woman, you don't speak English, you don't know anyone, so come back to your country, because it is impossible. And then when I start trying and doing mistakes, I told you, you're not gonna make it. You don't have the expertise. There's no space for women here. You're foreign. So it's just like how people can underestimate us, especially the men word that we're talking about. Because again, I love what you said, like they can have the chance to fail and learn from it. But for some reason, we don't have the same right. But I think failure is so important for everyone, being men, women, because with our failures, with our mistakes, is how we evolve.
That's where we learn.
Right, and how is it learned? And if we don't have the opportunity to make mistake, how are we going to evolve on this word, on this life that we've been given?
The concept, you know, to keep us in our place, you know, not allowing us to fail is a great way.
Exactly.
You know, making us feel guilty about failure is a great way. You know, it was very, very difficult for me after my accident in Nazare in 2013 that I almost died, and I had a lot of criticism, heavy criticism from very big names and social media overall. I was so scared to fail. You know, I would just ask myself, like, okay, if I try again and I fail now, what would happen? I mean, I would never get a chance again. So that weighted on me so heavily, you know, and that made me so scared of failure. And I don't wish that upon anyone. I think, you know, if you fail, it's all up on you. It's already a lot of fail. You know, it's already hard to fail. Yes, and then you don't allow to fail. You're like, oh my God, you're completely limiting my capacities in the world, you know? Because when I achieve, there's not much learning there. And then when I fail and I have to dig deep, you know, you're all just telling me to stop, you know.
You have to stop and reflect.
Yeah, you have to stop, reflect, evolve, get better, change certain things.
Be courage again to try again, right?
And then if society doesn't allow you to do that, it's just you're limited.
And you like about the accident, right? Because I think the accident and then you came back after the accident, right? So, and I think that's the parallel of like you're saying, like I was very afraid to failure, and then you had the accident and you overcome the accident, you went back to the big waves, and then you had a record. So this is just wow, because you have to have a lot of bravery and courage and resilience to say, I almost died, but I will go back. And I will prove to myself, I'm just thinking of like you saying to yourself, I'm not saying that maybe you haven't thought, but like, have you thought I will prove to myself that I'm capable to renew myself after the accident and go back and then be as courageous as I was before? Because for me, like when I read yesterday more in depth about your accident, I was like, wow. She actually recovered. She actually went back to the same wave that she had the accident.
Yeah, because it was the wave of the future of my sport. You know, to give up that would be to give up a road record forever.
No, but that's just such an inspirational like story, because like you didn't let your accident to stop you. And then as you said about the criticism, because when you had the accident, you had criticism around your accident. So people were not having the empathy towards you at all.
No.
Like, oh my God, Maya Gabeira had an accident. Let's be empathetic to the situation that's different. Was the opposite.
Was the opposite.
And then you overcome all of that.
Yeah, look, I think the beauty
overcome on the sport, but maybe, of course, like mentally, there's probably a lot of work. Maybe you still have to do it.
Yeah, I think the beauty of it was that I never looked at it like I'm going to do it and I'm going to prove to myself I can do it. I had no idea if I can do it.
Wow.
You know, for all those years, it was 4 years or so. I had no idea if I was going to ever surf gigantic waves again, you know, and the end result became very unimportant to me. You know, it was more about the process that I was on and every day, because, you know, when you don't have certainty, when everyone around you, doctors and spine surgeons, and you see yourself very, you know, fragile. I dealt with anxiety disorder that I'm treated till today. And I mean, the whole thing pointed to the direction of, you're probably not going to make it. And I accepted that. But I didn't accept to stop living my life every day trying, which I think is much more important than being attached to, I'm going to prove that I can. Because otherwise you're miserable for 4 years, and who knows if the end goal is going to ever happen, you know? So I just wanted to be able to every day
live your life.
Live my life, go and do my rehab and give my best. And, you know, there were always small victories to be recognized. And life became very simple, to be honest. You know, it was about going into surgery, waiting the time to be able to walk, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, rehab, 6 months, try to surf, fail, go back into surgery. And it was just this like process. You know, I was so involved with it that eventually, actually, when I finally reached the peak of my performance, which was in tests and blood tests and everything was better than before the accident, in March of 2017, that's when I was once and for all hospitalized with anxiety disorder, and I couldn't recover from that hospitalization. I usually recovered and moved on.
Okay.
And at that time, when I reached the peak of my performance and my doctor told me, now you're ready, I said, oops. Forgot about my head. Head is not ready. Doesn't seem to be ready.
Because we always forget, there's not just the physical, right? There's the mental as well.
And so I had a lot of work to do in that department. And of course, medicine and understanding the situation and being diagnosed. You know, I was suffering from anxiety disorder since I was a kid, and I was never diagnosed. It never took me to the point where I was hospitalized many times before for the same reasons, but they never sent me back home and I couldn't operate again. And that's what happened in 2017. They sent me back home and I was normal. And, you know, a month went by and I said, okay, I mean, I can't live like that. I need to dig in and see what this illness is. And, you know, I went to every physical possible illness there exists until I self-diagnosed. And I called a psychiatrist and I said, look, this is what I have. And
you self-diagnosed yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was good at it, you know,
no,
like
but it's
for
good.
4 years, I looked into my spine and I was the ultimate decision maker of what surgery to make to really heal myself. The third surgery, the final, was a fusion. And I had 9 surgeons between Brazil and the US, and none of them wanted to do the surgery I wanted to do. And it was only the 9th surgeon that said, I will do this one. And it was the one that I wanted.
In Brazil and
yeah,
US?
In Brazil. And he said, your case is a fusion. And I said, yes. On this level, yes. And I said, would you do it? And he was the first one to say, yes, I would do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it with you.
Let's do it. Wow.
And so I was very aware of my body and how to like understand things that I was going through physically, and my mental disorder is very physical. It's not. It's very, very physical. So I was capable to kind of understand the medicines that took me to feel better, feel worse, and finally I self-diagnosed after a month, and then I started the treatment, and I was able to break the world record, which I had no idea was going to happen because I was on medicine. I had now a mental illness issue, and it was really not on my plans.
When you went for that wave, you went to, what was if you remember the thought that you had?
Oh yeah, I knew it was the world record.
Yeah, so yeah. You went to the big wave. You mentally thought about I will break the record, or
that was the plan.
You determined that, so you manifest that for yourself.
Yeah, because the forecast, we started tracking that swell, and it was very clear to us that was going to probably be the biggest ever to be ridden there in good conditions and good wind. And we were surfing Nazare for probably 8 years by then, and so we had a lot of forecasts, and we knew what happened with each forecast. So that day was clear to all of us that was the biggest forecast we had seen with good winds, and so everyone was prepared to break a record or catch the biggest wave of their lives.
Yeah.
So for a week I prepared myself mentally, and without trying to put too much pressure, but just knowing that if I could ride one wave successfully that day, that was going to be a world record, especially for women. It could be for a man too.
What did you feel after?
It's a very funny sport, because you don't have people claiming, you don't have cameras. You're just
I get so crazy about it.
You just have that ride, and
I wish I was there with all my team, filming and clapping, because oh my Lord.
Yeah, it's a very personal experience. That's the thing, of big wave surfing. It's a very, very personal experience, and you feel that high, and you've done something incredible, and you have probably your driver is clapping for you and high-fiving, and your safety man is doing the same, and maybe a couple people that are around that saw are also screaming, and you go back to the harbor and everyone goes, because the record's not given right then, the wave is not measured right then, so first it's just a sensation that what you've done,
yes.
But it's not recognized. So but that day was very important for me, because all the weight that I carried of self-doubt was lifted off my shoulders. And that was the first time that I was able to really kind of turn the page on my accident and feel like I belonged, and that, if now I failed the week later, it didn't matter. I could fail again. That was a sense of freedom, that I really wanted.
I can't imagine. Of course, I cannot imagine, but I just of listening you telling the story, I could imagine the feeling of getting out of the wave and overcoming all your doubts, all your fears, especially after the accident.
Yeah, a lot of self-doubt.
A lot of self-doubt. So you were a truly example of a woman with courage, resilience, and it's just amazing. And
passion, because if you're not passionate, it's really hard to keep on things,
The passion, I love that you mentioned that. I am a very passionate person, and everything that I do, if I don't have the passion, I don't do it, because I think the passion is the drive, right? So you really have to have, of course, the resilience, the courage, the face, be fearless. But without passion, I'm so sorry. You cannot do, because the passion really changes everything.
Yeah, it changes everything.
When you wake up in the morning and you have that passion to actually conquer that, or go through your dreams, and it's changed. And I think passion is one of, for me at least personally, is what that drives me the most, to continue to wake up in every day, facing the challenge, facing the failures and the critiques and the doubts. But I'm so passionate about everything we do, and I think
you love
it's the same. And then there's nobody that's gonna stop me, because I've know what I wanted, and I'm not gonna let the critiques to stop. And I think
because then you stop doing what you love.
Exactly.
And it affects you tremendously.
100%,
so
100%.
it's like giving up on your life. And that's when people say, wow, you didn't give up, and I said, well, but it's bigger than that.
It's bigger
you're
than
thinking that I didn't give up on the world record. I probably gave up on the world record for 4 years, but I didn't give up on my dreams, on myself, on my everyday life, on things I love to do, on my rehab, on my gym, on my trainers. I mean, that was my life, like, how could I just give up on my life like that? It was gonna be not really happy times.
No. We have that one life, right? As we know, like, if we're here.
Oh, I knew very well at that point.
Exactly. So we need to make the most of it, right?
Yes.
But tell us, like, what changing a little bit the subject on, like, from the accident to your passion for activism. Where does this coming from? How did you start it? And what is your driving there? Because you are very active when it comes to pro bono work, activism, sustainability. Where is this coming from? You mentioned about your father.
It came from my family.
Yes, and your family.
Yeah, it came from my childhood first, from just being in a political family, intellectual family, with my dad being the driving force of sustainability, environmental protection in Brazil 30 years ago, when nobody really knew about climate change. He was already thinking about all of the problems that we would face in the future. So I grew up around those conversations, and I didn't have time to act upon any of it because I had my own career, and I was very, very dedicated to surfing and my professional career for many years. And I started getting involved with Oceana in 2012. So that's 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, but in a very superficial way. I was just an ambassador. And I would always, lend my image to Greenpeace and to WWF and anything that I would think that people would ask me, and it would be, that I could help without much commitment, because I was so committed to my sport and myself. So it was only, to be honest, after my second world record that I felt like I could give something back in that department, because it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of dedication if you do it. I don't do things in a shallow way if I'm really going to do it. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it with a lot of commitment. I'll spend time on it. I'll study. I'll be involved in a lot of different ways. Now I'm with UNESCO at the board of Oceana, and I do other projects that I'm asked to, and they're important. So it was only after my second world record that I felt like I could start depositing a lot of time into that part, and also I think it became very clear that the ocean was a way forward to combat climate change. And because that was the place that I had worked my whole life, it's we joke between my dad and myself, that he started with the green revolution, I must continue with the blue revolution.
Love that.
Because to go green, we must actually be blue right now. And so that's, I think, the timing became also something significant, that the ocean started to come into the front of the conversation on climate change, on conservation, on what's happening with the ocean being unhealthy, the impacts, how it can actually save us from the disaster that we're in, and the route we're taking the planet on. So that's why I think, with timing and with me feeling more accomplished in my sport, I felt the need to start doing something
more around activism and support. That's beautiful. And what do you think? Because, like, being an activist, and now, as you said, like, you're trying to more, when you have time, to type into environment efforts, of course, balance out the sport. How do you feel about the engagement of brands into athletes, special athletes like you that wanted to be the voice for the environment, that wanted to like be, like I just said, like you're doing the blue movement? And do you feel like brands, they are more engaged to athletes that has that sustainability activism typing into what they're doing? Or because like being an agency, we work with a lot of brands, right? So there's a lot of brands now that they wanted to be looking sustainable, but also be connected and partner with, you know, athletes and talents that talk about sustainability. But there is this movement like, oh, just because it's trend, a brand needs to be, you know, related to causes and collaborated with talents like yourself that talks about it. Some of them are authentic and genuine, and some of the brands, they just wanted to actually,
it's greenwashing. Yeah.
What is your perspective about like brands versus athletes versus collaboration and all this sustainability movement that everyone wants to talk about and be part of?
I think brands shouldn't be talking about it. They should be doing it.
Oh my God, yes.
And I worry a lot about industries overall. I rarely look into a brand itself.
Okay.
You know, so I'm very critical about the fossil fuel industry and certain industries that have the capacity to really drive us into hell in the near future. Plastic industry that comes from fossil fuels and things like that. But yeah, I think it's not the time to talk anymore. You know, we have 10 years. We have 10 years to move this tide around, and the talking has been done. The science is here. We have ways to move forward, but it's gonna need a huge effort, and it's not from brands. It's from government and it's from society. Brands will just follow laws.
So do you think brands, do you also have a responsibility?
Oh, they have a huge responsibility, but not to talk or to market.
Yes.
You know, I don't care so much what they're marketing about. I care about what they do behind the scenes. And if they see, you know, that they show promote it, that's okay. But if they just promote it and it's not true to what they're doing, I think that's a problem. And, you know, let's say I can name Braskem, you know, the biggest plastic creator in the world, which is actually Brazilian. They have, you know, all this plastic that they're putting into the world, and they have a beautiful little part of it that's called a green plastic or biodegradable plastic, and such thing doesn't exist. They say it's made of sugar cane, but they don't specify how much of it. And of course, there is petroleum in there because there is no way. And so does that make them sustainable? If 5% of their company or even less, you know, it's green plastic that is not green? I don't know. Yeah. So it's a complicated thing, you know. You're either sustainable and not just sustainable. Okay, you have to work around all the issues that will move humanity forward. So it's about equality, it's about ending poverty, it's about education, it's about opportunity, it's about sustainability, it's about climate change, it's about. So I think brands, you know, shouldn't have the freedom to not take all those things into account. They should have to, by law, take all those things into account and have reports and make sure that salaries are open and how much they pollute is out there. You know, like we're pressuring Amazon to give their plastic report, and it's so difficult and they change their numbers and they've never done it before, and we should take whatever they throw at us. And you know, the only way to really change those things is through government. Yeah, so we know that, you know, we're in a world that growth is above all. But what is growth? if we keep going to the gross, income or GPD, it's it's a growth of number, but we're losing well-being, we're hiring social tensions, wars, poverty, inequality, and that number of growth in the end of the day for the country doesn't mean much, but a number. If we keep focusing on that number of growth, we forget what is real. What is the earth? What is the well-being? What's inequality? What's poverty? What's climate change? So I think that the growth, the way we measure now, is wrong, and if we don't change that for
mindset
this century, we're gonna be in real trouble.
And do you think social media helps, or do you think social media?
I think any platform helps. I think social media can be a great tool of information. I think education is essential. Because you have to educate society to know what they want and to know what they're facing and to know exactly how government will change their lives in a huge way. Islands will be undersea. Cities like Jakarta already have a plan to go to another place. They're going to be undersea soon. And so there's a lot of issues that if we don't educate people to put the pressure onto government and to make the leaders know that that is the change they want, leaders do need the backup of society, and society needs more information.
And social media is here to support that, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good things about social media, and of course there's other things that are not as good. But one thing that social media can really help societies in the education aspect, right?
Yes.
And we've been seeing
internet
a lot of
overall.
Yes, exactly. Internet overall.
Access to internet, access
to content. Because if you think a few years ago, how we would have access and then be educated about all this issue, you would have to buy newspaper, magazine, but it's not everyone that could actually afford, right? So now social media is here to really democratize the information to everyone. Maya, they really want us to finish our conversation, but I don't want to finish. We need to do part 2. Like Fernandinha is there, like, don't finish. Maya, if you can give one, I know it's just you talk so much, and it's so good to hear you talking about your life experience, your, the way you see the world. How do you feel your purpose here in this life is just beyond just the surf, but looking at all the activism, using your voice to that as a cultural relevance voice, right? To use your platform to educate on all these issues that you just talked about it. Plus being a woman that is very inspiring, that is in a sport that you said that we all know that we have the perspective there's a sport for men, but then you came and you broke the record, and you're still here, and you're still surfing, you're still going to the big waves, and still inspiring us all. How do you see the future?
Well, I think we either act as a collective force on Earth, or we're going to be out of here. So it's time to act as a collective force, because the problems that we're going to face in the next 50 years are very serious, and we have the capacity to change it. But we can only change it if we really unite. It will demand a lot of countries and a lot of people to get involved. And, it comes from having empathy, from feeling what others feel. We look a lot into ourselves
all the time.
And if you stop now and you can have empathy for climate migration, for people dying on the floods and fires and extreme weather events, you can already start feeling pretty bad and want to do something about it.
100%.
And so empathy and looking around, I think it's quite critical, and it's what I've learned a lot after I was able to accomplish my second world record, I have a hard time looking for myself and to be on top of the things that are like me, because I lost that desire. And I'm criticized for that oftentimes.
Which I don't understand.
That I'm not, more savvy, that I'm not more,
If you're not savvy, Dali, I don't know what I am. I'm so sorry.
But, I'm more worried about others than I am of myself.
And this is beautiful. This is so beautiful. And I think it's just like, you're very unique. You're very special, because it's not everyone that has the same mindset that you have. And the world that we're living in right now, if we don't have empathy for others, then at least as well, I have the same, share the same feeling. There is no point, because
there is no point.
What we're here for is I'm not here for me. I'm here for others.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So if I'm doing my work, I'm doing not just for me, I'm doing for others. It's all about giving back, and it's all about having empathy, because maybe what you're feeling and your pain, your hurt, I cannot feel it, but if I have empathy towards that, it's already a winning game, right?
And we're humans, we all struggle from a lot of the same things.
A lot of the same thing.
And we seem to just not remember that we are one human race.
And we have our society that's keeping pushing us to do better, to do more, and forget about others and growth.
Numbers.
You can have the numbers, but that's not all.
It can be the only calculator of success or improvement or growth.
Not at all. Because life is beyond that. And for surf, are we gonna see you again soon on the big waves?
Yes, my season starts in October, so
exciting. We're gonna all be there to see her, and we're gonna be there to clap for you and cheer you up, and I'm sure you're gonna have your third record. Can you imagine?
I can.
Guys, this was Maya Gabeira. I think it's I can't stay here forever, but sadly we have a limited time on this podcast, but she will come back for sure. Maya, you're such an inspirational person, women, and again, congratulations for everything you have achieved. And just listen to your talk. I've learned a lot from you. And if everyone could, learn a little bit from this conversation and take everything that you said as a piece of inspiration for the world to change, I think that podcast episode will be the wonders for everyone that's listening us today. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to work more closer with you.
Same.
And very happy that you're here in London. And thank you everyone that continue to be here with us on our Influencer Marketing Uncovered podcast. We are very grateful for your audience, for you to keep listening to us every single week. So if you're not following us yet, make sure you do so on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and of course, YouTube. Hope you have enjoyed this conversation with the wonderful, incredible woman, Maya Gabeira. And thank you again so much for tuning in, and I see you next time.